Welcome. I'm Chris with Bama Law. Thanks for joining me. We're going to do Karen Read trial day. Technically, it's day 4, but they've got it as day 3 because I think day 1 was opening arguments. So my name is Chris. I am a licensed attorney with the state of Alabama. Almost going on 15 years, mostly criminal law experience, doing defense work, and about 40% civil. Mostly the last couple of years, it's been just civil. I've practiced in 4 states, so I hope I can give glean some information on that y'all may have onto this about this trial as things go on, and we will go forth together. Let us watch. Let's see. I've got it at 1.5, so I always pick it up a few hours in because we'll catch up before it's 10:42 Central. So my guess is we'll catch up by 12:30, somewhere in there.
Christina, you can step up to the podium.
12:30 Central, I should say. And before I get started, I always forget to do this. I am a lawyer. I'm not your lawyer. If you need one, get one. Find legal advice. Seek it. Go to your the state bar website. I think every state bar website has a referral service. Every one of them. Just put some information in or call them, and they will refer you to an attorney and get you some help. But don't take this as legal advice. It's not. I'm just a dumb guy giving my opinion on this, which really, in the big scheme of things, is totally inconsequential in the world history. So it's just a small little footprint.
Sir, I'll remind you you're still under oath. Thank you.
And this is Ted Turner's son from yesterday.
Yesterday, you testified that when
I hate
Karen
to
Read was
bag
brought to
on
the
him
hospital,
because I
she
got
didn't want to
Tourette's,
get
but
into a hospital
it's
Johnny,
pretty
and she
brutal.
didn't want to give a urine sample. Do you recall that
Brutal.
testimony?
I do.
It was clear to you that her reluctance to cooperate at that time was because she very much wanted to check on
I
John's
got really
progress
nervous
and
too
status at
yesterday.
the
It was kind of
hospital,
funny.
No, I don't believe that to be the case.
correct? Well, you testified before the grand jury regarding this matter 3 years ago, didn't you?
I don't believe I said that she was
I
reluctant.
didn't ask you that question. You testified before the grand jury 3 years
Answer
ago,
the question,
didn't you?
dude.
I testified before the grand jury 3 years ago.
You were under oath then, as you're under oath today, correct?
Correct.
You swore to tell the truth.
I am
They're on
wrong.
cross.
You swore to tell the truth in 2022 before the grand jury, did you not?
I did.
That was less than 3 months after you brought Karen Read to the hospital, didn't you?
Yeah.
And your
Oh, they
memory of
charged
what
you
happened at
quick.
the hospital was very good in April of 2022.
I really didn't keep up
right?
with this.
As good as today.
Your memory in April of 2022 was very good, wasn't it?
It was very good as it is today.
Okay, so you want to add the as it is today, despite the fact that you weren't asked that question. Is that right?
Gotcha.
Sustained.
And I'm
When questioned by Mr. Lally at the grand jury, you were asked the following question.
Dude.
So what, if any, interaction did you have with her, meaning Ms. Read, at the hospital once you were there? You remember that question, right?
I do.
And your answer was, after that, I helped escort her down to, they call it the psych hallway, where they have rooms set up for psychiatric patients for their evaluation. And then she was unhappy.
This is where
that she
your
wasn't able to
words
see
come back to
me,
haunt
John.
you.
And she
Be
kept
very
trying
careful
to. She
what
didn't
you
want
put
to get
into
into a hospital Johnny. She didn't
documentation
want to, I
as a
believe,
nurse or a
give a
doctor.
urine sample. She was not, the
Put
nurses were asking her to do
medical
certain things
notes
that every
as they
patient has to
should
do, and
be.
she was not
Don't
cooperating.
put in
Do
it
you remember that answer?
I do.
So 3 years
ad
ago,
hominems
when
or
you
any kind of
testified about this
commentary,
issue of giving a urine
unless it's
sample,
needed.
you testified under oath
To
that you
describe something.
believed that she didn't want to give a urine sample, correct?
Correct.
Yesterday, 3 years later, you testified with certainty that she didn't want to give them, right?
Yeah, she was giving them a hard time about having to give a urine sample.
Right. No, I'm asking you about your testimony yesterday in contrast to the grand jury, sir. To the extent that I ask yes or no question, I'd like yes or no answers.
So
okay?
no instructions to the witness, Mr.
You
Yannetti.
want
Ask
me
the
to witness be
question.
instructed to answer the question yes or no if it calls for a yes or no question.
Then
Yes.
ask the judge to do
Answer the
so.
question that's asked of you. Okay.
Okay.
So go ahead, ask a question.
Slow it down there,
You
buddy.
testified yesterday that she
Slow
didn't
down,
want
buddy.
to give a urine sample without
Whoa,
saying it
buddy.
was your belief
Slow down.
that she didn't want to give one, correct?
Correct.
In any case, were you aware that when she was asked to give a urine sample, that Ms. Read had gotten her period and did not have a tampon?
I was aware she was on her period. Yes.
You're
Oh, wow,
also
this
aware
got
that when
really
somebody is
graphic
brought to
and
the hospital for a
personal.
Section 12, they have no privacy. Isn't that right?
They have medical privacy. Either the tech or the nurse would be with the patient at all times.
Okay. With them at all times, observing them at
Observing
all
them,
times,
correct.
correct?
So they wouldn't be. She wasn't in
Yes,
like
they
the hallway
don't
looking
ring
at the
around
public.
their neck.
Understood, sir. But she also,
Because
when I said
Epstein-
privacy, what I was asking is, she was not allowed to go to the bathroom alone, to give a urine sample, correct?
She was a
Probably.
psychiatric patient.
Right.
That's correct.
So she would have to use the bathroom in front of hospital personnel or some medical personnel with people watching her.
I
while she
never
was on
could
her
do
period
that
with
as
no
a
tampon,
security
correct?
officer when I worked at the
I would
hospital.
understand that to be true.
I used to do that. I used to have
And you're
to,
aware that she did
I'd have to
cooperate
close the
eventually
door
give a
some
blood
for the
sample as
dude.
well, correct?
It just can't
I'm
do
not
that
aware of a blood sample,
somebody.
but urine sample, yes.
She did give the urine
He
sample,
just
correct?
starts
Now,
them really well.
In your testimony yesterday, what Karen Reed may have asked you about John surviving in the snow with light clothing. You remember those questions?
No.
John surviving in the snow with light clothing. You remember those questions?
No, that's the feed.
I remember
it's not
asking
us.
about not having a jacket, correct?
Now, starting at the end of the day, when I cross-examined you yesterday, I asked you about that topic, and I said to you, you mentioned something about hypothermia, that you assumed you may have been dealing with a hypothermia situation. And your answer was, well, she said that he had been out in the snow without a jacket for many hours, correct?
Correct.
But before I cross-examined you at the end of the day yesterday, you previously testified 3 times about this topic, correct?
I believe it would be the grand jury and the previous trial.
Right, and direct examination when Mr. Brennan was asking you questions before I stood up, correct?
Okay, yes.
Let's start with the first time you testified about this topic back in 2022. That was, again, less than 3 months after you had a conversation with Ms. Reed at the scene on January 29th, correct?
Correct.
Her statements and questions to you at the scene were fresh in your mind in April of 2022, correct?
Correct.
In April of 2022, before the grand jury, Mr. Lally asked you, quote, what, if any, questions did she ask you regarding hypothermia? Do you remember that question?
I do.
Your answer was, she was just wondering if he could have survived outside in the cold even though he didn't have a jacket on. Do you remember giving that answer?
I do.
Nowhere in that answer, in 2022, less than 3 months after these events, do you attribute the words, quote, many hours, end quote, in the snow to Ms. Reed, correct?
Yes, I was not.
I'm not asking for an explanation, sir. I'm asking for an answer.
All right, so he was answering you, Mr.
My
Yannick.
question called for a yes or no answer. Nowhere in your answer in 2022 do you attribute the words many hours in the snow to Ms. Reed.
Damn,
Yes
dude, then
or no?
strike it as non-responsive. Quit being
No,
a
I did not
dick.
say that at that point.
Nowhere in your
Now
answer
you're gonna lose the
in
jury.
2022 do you testify that
Juries don't
Ms.
like
Reed
people
told
get
you
bullied.
he had actually been in the snow for many hours, correct?
She did. At that-
Sir, I'm asking you about your testimony.
So
Dude, let him
the
answer.
question.
Let me ask it again. Nowhere in
Holy
your answer in 2022
How not
did
to
you
do it.
testify that Ms.
Call
Reed
civil
told
witness.
you he had actually been in the snow for many hours, correct?
In 2022, I testified that
Ask him about his testimony. Let him
I was just told
testify
to be
and
brief.
impeach it.
and give generalizations. She quantified many hours in the snow
All
when we were back.
let me try this again, sir.
So,
because
Mr. Yannetti, you're just saying 2022. Get to a
of
date
course,
and a
yes,
place.
April
my
of
God.
2022. Okay, before the grand jury.
This guy is
Question again, and I'm
I don't
seeking
remember.
a yes or no answer from you.
shit.
Okay,
I don't remember what
nowhere in
last
your
week.
answer in April of 2022, before the grand jury, did you testify under oath that Ms. Reed told you that John had actually been in the snow for many hours? Correct.
Not in 2022 of April. No.
Okay. The next time you testified under oath was last year in 2024, correct?
Correct.
During that testimony, Mr. Lally asked you, oh, by the way, so 2022 is no
I
mention of
didn't
many
know
hours,
how
right?
bad the police had botched
I did
this
not, and I was
case.
told to be brief on the
So
grand jury.
last
But
night I
again,
learned some more.
No mention of many hours
Whoa.
in 2022. Okay. Now,
I'm surprised she's going to
2024,
try it
last
again.
year, Mr. Lally asked you, so firefighter Whitley, at some
I think
point,
she probably
specific to
did
your
it. It's
conversations
just
with the
how did
defendant,
she
Ms.
do it?
Reed, can you describe sort of
You know, a
her
lot of
demeanor or the
damage can be
observations
done
you
with
made
just a
in relation to that as
hitting
you were
of the
speaking
head
with
on,
her?
on an
And
arm.
your answer was, yes, she was very upset. She kept
Get
asking if there was
intracranial
any
pressure,
chance.
swelling
She kept asking
the
us
brain,
if we
etc.
knew if the person
Yeah, it doesn't
ambulance
take
one
much.
had transported was alive or dead, and we could not speak
Really
to that.
don't.
She asked if somebody could be alive in the
People
snow
die from
without a
getting
jacket
punched
for many
all
hours,
the time.
correct?
Correct.
So 2022, there was no mention of many hours.
It's not hard.
2024,
So
over time,
she hit him with
now
her
that's the
car.
first time that you mentioned the words many hours in your testimony regarding this case, correct?
Correct.
Right? And when you testified last year, you testified still that she was asking you a question about surviving in the snow, correct?
Correct.
So then we come to yesterday on direct examination. Do you recall that Mr. Brennan yesterday asked you, before you left, were you having any conversations with the defendant? And you answered yes. Recall that yesterday?
Is that at the hospital?
I'm asking you yesterday, do you recall Mr. Brennan asking you, before you left essentially the scene, were you having any conversations with the defendant? And your answer was yes.
You're talking about I'm just trying to make sure we're talking about the same instance. Are we talking about when we left the hospital?
I'm
Or
lost.
when we
I know the
left,
witness is
Fairview?
lost.
When you're at Fairview Road, leaving Fairview Road, we're talking about the same subject of what Ms. Reed supposedly told you or asked you. Okay? Mr. Brennan went into that with you.
So on the way, you're talking on the way to the hospital in terms of left. When we left.
Well, before you left. He
Left
meant
from
before you
where,
left the
dude?
scene.
The
Okay, well,
scene
I'm
or
trying
the
to clarify.
It's the
hospital?
same conversation, Mr. Whitley. I'm not
So,
trying to trick you.
Mr. Yannetti, he just asked for a point of reference. It's clear, no go.
Understood.
Damn.
And Mr. Brennan said, can you share with the jury
Dude,
what those
calm it
conversations were
down,
about?
Beavis. Somebody
And
give
your
him a
answer was,
Valium.
so we were talking, she was upset. She
Her
kept
blood
asking
pressure
if
pill,
there was
he's gonna
any chance
stroke
her husband
out.
could be alive even sitting outside in the snow without any coat for many hours. Do you recall that answer that you gave yesterday on direct examination?
Yes.
And that was the first time that you mentioned that she said supposedly or asked supposedly about him sitting outside in the snow, correct?
I was just using phrases generally speaking.
No.
I wasn't at that point I was paraphrasing. I was not speaking verbatim to what she said.
Let's try that again. That was the first time that you mentioned that she claimed or asked that he was sitting outside, correct?
It could have been sitting, laying, being.
Let's try it a third time.
So
Was that-
just ask the question, not
Just
let's
ask
try
it
it.
and let him
Sure.
move
Was-
on,
was
dude.
that the first
You're not
time
going to get
that
the
you
elicited
testified under
answer.
oath that Ms. Reed said or asked about him sitting outside?
Are you asking me to clarify whether she used
I'm
the
not
word
asking you
sitting?
to clarify anything. I'm asking you whether that was the first time yesterday during direct examination that you mentioned that she asked
Now
about
you
him
put the
sitting
question
outside.
together. Damn.
I'm sorry. I am very confused because I'm trying to figure
Me
out if
too,
you're,
buddy.
he was being outside, sitting outside.
I'm asking about Ms. Reed's statements, sir. That's all I've been asking you about. Her
Okay.
statements to you.
And
your
none of it makes
testimony about her
sense.
statements to you. Was yesterday on direct examination the first time that you testified under oath that Ms. Reed
Still a
mentioned the
complex,
words
a
sitting
compound
outside?
question.
I don't know.
All right.
I'm just using.
How about
she
when
might
was
have-
the
she
first
might have said
time you
laying outside, being
testified?
outside.
To him,
Okay, so when
Her
you
relaying that
testified
info.
yesterday before this jury
Yes.
that she mentioned the words sitting outside, you're now saying that that might not have been accurate,
in
correct?
his defense, it's
Could
not
have
an
been a
easy.
different word.
Okay, but you
Just got
didn't
a
say it
data
could have
to
been a
get
different
out.
word yesterday. You just left it as sitting outside, correct?
Yeah, that's what I said. Sitting.
All right, so now we get from, the grand jury with many hours mentioned to questions about many hours to sitting outside to let's talk about what you said on cross-examination.
I object.
Okay, the objection is sustained.
Sure. On cross-examination, your words were, she said he
And
had
they're
been
slow.
out in the snow without a jacket on for many hours, correct?
She had asked if he had been outside, if there was any chance he could be alive, even though he was outside without a jacket for many hours.
So it always was a question, correct?
It was a question.
She never said what you said on cross-examination yesterday, which was she said that he had been out in the snow without a jacket on for many hours. That was not a declarative statement by Ms. Reed, correct?
Objection.
That would
I'll
have
allow
been
that.
an
Was that a
easier
declarative
question
statement
to
by Ms.
ask about 10
She
minutes
asked
ago.
if he could be alive without a jacket in the snow for many
All right,
hours.
so again, it was a question, sir.
She asked me, and we were just trying to give her hope in terms of telling stories of hypothermic patients that could survive outside in the snow.
Okay, is there any redirect?
Briefly.
Okay.
When you were called to the grand jury, was the testimony as in-depth and as long as it is in front of this jury?
No, not even close.
When you're recounting your memories of what happened, do you memorize word for word what you said in the past?
Objection.
As to that form, it's sustained.
Remember, a grand
you're
jury
recounting-
testimony is only the state. Almost never do you hear from a defendant. It's not they can't testify; it's that they don't, because they'd be stupid if they did. But at least in Alabama, it's just the state. So it's essentially tidbits of info that they just need to get to the grand jury in order to get an indictment. You can indict a ham sandwich.
The past. Do you record your statements personally?
Objection.
I'm going to let that one. Do you record your statements?
No.
Next question.
When you testified in the grand jury, page 90, line 15, and you said, the defendant told you, I'm upset if he dies, I want to die. And then you later testified last year, and you said, if my husband dies, I want to die. Do you notice the little differences between those phrases?
I do.
Is that you making up words?
No.
Is that you trying to help a case?
Objection.
As to form, that's sustained.
Are you inventing facts?
No.
Sir, when you were recounting what happened that day, are you using your best memory?
Objection.
He's trying to
When you were
rehabilitate a
By the
witness,
defendant
prosecutor.
about how long, or someone out in the snow without a jacket for many hours. Do you remember that conversation with her?
I do.
Where were you during that conversation? Do
We were in the back of the ambulance.
you remember it distinctly?
I remember it distinctly. She was looking at me.
When you tried to give her hope and comfort and you told her stories about other situations where people, maybe children, have fallen to the ice and had hypothermia, did you have that conversation with her and trying to comfort her?
I did.
Do you remember that conversation?
I do.
Did you necessarily share those conversations with the grand jury?
I don't recall if I did or I didn't.
Did you ever write that in your report?
No.
Is it something you typically put everything in your report?
No, we do not write. But generally, we only write the patient's complaint, what happened, and what they did, not their opinions or anything like that of what's going on.
Do you have any interest in the outcome of this case?
I do not.
How long have you been a firefighter for?
Since March of 2006, and an EMT since November of 2002.
Over 20 years.
Correct.
You said that you live near Kerry Roberts?
I do.
You've been to a block party for the kids where you brought the fire engine down?
I do.
I'm going to allow it.
When you're at that block party, do you ever step out and have secret meetings with Kerry Roberts trying to corroborate some conspiracy on their behalf?
No.
I'm going to allow it.
Again,
No.
he's
Okay,
trying to
clear on the line.
rehabilitate the witness,
No further questions.
even though it's not for
Any
the express
follow-ups,
purpose
Unity?
of what he's
All
doing.
right, I violate you. All set.
Yay. You're out of there, buddy. Run. get out of the courtroom before that subpoena comes back
Like,
on
like
you.
the 5, Your Honor?
Oh, what a dumbass. Who does this?
And his mother leans over the kitchen island and says to me, I think it looks like he got hit by a car. It looks like he got hit by a car.
All right, who's your next witness, Mr. Brennan?
Next witness is Gene Demoulas.
It's like a hawk or a crow.
Okay.
No, here we go. Sidebar number 1. And fast forward.
Please don't again, the court during the case, the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, the whole truth. You just scooch in, close to the microphone, thanks.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Jean Lewis. I am the general manager at CF McCarthy's in Canton.
I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up if you would, please. Thank you.
You said you're the general manager at CF McCarthy's?
In Canton, yes.
Thank you. How long have you been the general manager at CF McCarthy's in Canton for?
For 6 years.
Can you briefly describe for the jury what CF McCarthy's is?
It is a restaurant and bar.
At CF McCarthy's, is there a video surveillance system inside?
Yes.
Who owns that video surveillance system?
CF McCarthy's.
Are you familiar with the video system?
Yes.
Have you ever looked at it before?
Yes.
Do you employ people to help the establishment with the video system?
No.
You maintain it on your own?
Yes.
At some point, were you visited by somebody from the Massachusetts State Police?
Yes.
Were you asked whether or not they could view some of your video surveillance?
Yes.
Do you remember the date? Not the date they came to visit you, the date that they were looking for.
I believe it was January 28th, 27th, 28th of
Around that
2022.
time?
Yes.
Did you allow access to the video system?
Yes.
Did you oversee that access to the video system?
Yes.
Was it a state police officer?
It was to 2 state police detectives.
Do you remember their names?
I remember one of the detectives' names. I do not remember the other detective.
The one you remember, could you share the name?
It was Detective Bupnik, Yuri.
Detective Yuri Buchanan.
Yes.
At some point, was he allowed to download information from the surveillance system?
Yes.
Did you watch him do that?
Yes, I did.
Detective
At some
Yuri.
point, have you been able
Yuri.
to briefly look at some of that download?
Yes.
And does it appear to be a fair and accurate depiction of the surveillance or the area of your bar?
Yes.
Move to introduce.
Okay.
He's laid the baseline to introduce some evidence.
Thank you.
He's laid foundation, which you have to lay
Your Honor, may I play just a
in
small
order to
portion?
introduce
Sure,
your
thank you.
evidence. It's got to be relevant.
I'm going to show you just some random shots from this video, but I want to know if you recognize it. Is this the inside of CF McCarthy's?
Yes.
I'm not asking if you have any particular knowledge or information about that. Now, I want to know, is this a fair and accurate depiction of what CF McCarthy's looks like?
Audio
Yes.
issues.
Has there been any substantive, significant changes to the inside of that establishment
No.
since this video was taken?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Gilman. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Okay.
I have no questions.
All right.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you.
Your next witness, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you. Bridget Meehan.
I was smart. I would have passed on her too. So let's talk about evidence real quick to get something in. You've got 401, Rule 401. We'll just use federal rules. Evidence must make a fact more or less probable. This is the relevance rule that I just talked about. Then it would be without the evidence, and the fact must be a consequence or be of a consequence in the action. Rule 402, irrelevant evidence is inadmissible. Ensure probative value isn't substantially overweight. So you have a balancing act, all right, of probative value. The court may exclude relevant evidence if its probative value is substantially outweighed by danger of unfair prejudice, and this benefits the defendant. Confusion, misleading the jury, undue delay, waste of time. These are all objections. You can do 403 objections. Lay a proper foundation, which they just did. Testify or present evidence showing the item's identity, origin, and connection to the case. For example, they may say, Your Honor, I recognize this photograph because I took it on 7th of April, 2022, at blah, 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 using my iPhone. Authenticate the evidence. Rule 901. Proponent must produce evidence sufficient to support a finding that the item is what the proponent claims. Common methods or witness testimony, chain of custody, metadata, digital files, and comparison by expert witnesses. Rule 902 is more rare. I wouldn't say rare. It's just not as common. You definitely don't hear issues about it. They're self-authenticating, certified public record, newspaper, business records, etc., with an affidavit. Address hearsay, Rule 801 to 807. If it involves an out-of-court statement, make sure an exception applies. The excited utterance, present sense impression, we've heard both of those. Statement against interest, business public records, prior testimony, etc. Comply with discovery rules. That's about all on that one. So that's your basis for getting in, for getting in evidence with your witness. That's what you have to lay out. And that's what they've just done with this witness in order to play the video. Yeah, it's
May I proceed?
Yes.
Good morning.
Morning.
Could you introduce yourself to the jury, please?
My name is Bridget Meehan.
Where do you work?
I work at the Waterfall Bar and Grill in Canton.
The name maybe tells us a little bit about it, but could you just share a couple lines of what the Waterfall Bar and Grill is?
It's a small family-owned business in Canton. It's in a mixed conduit complex.
Are you involved in the ownership of
Jesus,
it?
her dialect.
Yes.
How long have you been involved with the Waterfall Bar and Grill?
We've been there approximately 10 years.
Do you help run the establishment?
Yes, I do.
And you were running the establishment back on January 28, 2022? At some point, were you asked or visited to see if your establishment had video surveillance of the inside?
I was.
Does your establishment have video surveillance of the inside?
It does.
Do you have a camera and a server?
Do I have? Yes, I do.
Did you provide video surveillance to the Massachusetts State Police from that night, January 28, 2022?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'd like to move this in as an exhibit, please.
Okay. Ms. Giannetti?
So he's laid the foundation,
With the court's permission?
Yes.
relevant,
Ma'am, I'm going to show you.
non-probative, or excuse me, it's probative.
Okay, stop, please. Do you see that video?
I do.
Does that depict the inside of McCarthy's? I'm sorry, the Waterfall? I'm trying to switch establishments on. Back on January 28, 2022, does that look the way it looked then?
Yes.
Has there been any significant changes inside since then?
No.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay. All right.
That's just to get in the video they're going to play. That's all. We're going to watch probably a 30-second clip, and it's going to take 2 or 3 witnesses. It's just part
All right. Your next witness, Mr. Brennan.
that sucks.
Commonwealth Halls, Mike Camerano.
Weird layout. I would not want to be right up there on the judge. I make too much commentary under my breath.
Good morning.
May I?
Please.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Hi, good morning. My name is Michael Camerano.
Mr. Camerano, can I ask how old you are? I'm sorry.
Spell your last name.
Camerano.
And so if you could either move the microphone down a little bit or speak up or maybe a combination of both, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask you how old you are?
48,
Where do you live?
Canton, Mass.
How long have you lived in Canton
My
for?
age.
Me and my wife have lived there for 20 years. Me and my wife have lived there for 20 years. We have 2 children.
How old are your children, sir?
My daughter is 17. My son is 14.
Did you know John O'Keefe?
Yes.
How did you know him?
I met John for the first time at his sister's. They have been
All right,
sister
buddy.
in 2013.
Don't be nervous.
I met John there for the first time. And then years later,
It's like singing
our
a
kids
song in
got
front of
involved with sports
someone.
together, and
Just get the
they
first
became very
lyric
close. As they
out.
became close, I became very close with John and his family.
Was your daughter close with John's niece?
Yes.
Was your son close with?
Yes.
Did you spend a lot of time together through sports and socially?
Yes, we did.
I want to take you forward to January 28th of 2022.
Okay.
Do you remember that day?
Yes.
Had you, without any discussion of what might have been said, did you have any discussions with John that day?
Yes.
Did you have a plan?
Yes, we were communicating.
At some point, did you decide that you were going to spend some time or go meet John?
Yes. That Friday, my daughter and his daughter, they got acceptance letters to school. So we wanted to get them together so they could enjoy the time together. And, just, go over like how it would be so much fun, something new, different. Yeah, so we were going to meet up after I got out of work.
Was your daughter planning to go to a new school?
Yes.
Where?
Bishop Fan,
And how about his niece?
same.
They both got accepted.
They
to the
both
same
got
school?
accepted to the same school.
Was it a celebratory move?
Yes.
Did you have a plan to bring the children together so they could celebrate?
Yes, we did.
And then separately, you were going to meet John and celebrate?
Correct.
Where did you drop your daughter off?
I've never gotten
I
that
dropped my daughter off.
excited
John.
about a
When
kid
John,
getting
I
into
was at the
school.
house with John and the girls, and we had a little celebration. Talked about how nice it's going to be, fun, change, different, meet new people.
And you celebrated at John's house before you went out?
Correct.
After the celebration with your children, did you and John leave?
Yes.
During that celebration, was there anybody there other than you, John, and your 2 daughters?
No. No. Karen was not there.
Was there anybody else there?
No, just the 2 girls.
So I'm
myself
guessing they were at
and
the
John.
restaurant.
What was the weather like that night?
It was cold. It was not snowing yet.
Was there an expectation?
Yes,
next morning?
exactly. Yes,
What was that?
that there was going to be a big snowstorm coming in.
A storm was coming.
Yes.
When you left, did you leave in a separate car than John, or did you leave together?
No, we left together. John got in my car, and we were leaving. We were going to leave.
Where were the girls?
The girls were in the house, stayed in the house.
They were staying at John's house?
Yes, correct.
Where did you go?
We went to CF McCarthy's.
When you got there, did you know anybody who was
Yep,
there other than you and
Figured
John?
it.
At that time, no.
Did you spend time at CF McCarthy's?
Yes.
Were you drinking?
Yes.
Was John drinking?
Yes.
Alcohol?
Yes.
How long were you
No,
there for?
sweet tea.
A couple hours.
While you were there, did anybody come and meet you? That you were
Yes,
I just don't
a friend.
understand the whole drinking and
Karen
getting
came.
drunk because your kid got no school. I don't
A
know.
friend.
Yes.
What was the friend's name?
Kurt.
And
You know,
then
my
how
kid
long after
got
you
in
first got there
Alabama,
was it that the
University of
defendant arrived?
Alabama. I didn't celebrate.
I would like to say within an hour, so
Whoop-de-doo.
not 100% sure.
You said back home it was a celebratory mood. Was it still a
She had
celebratory
a
mood?
4.0. She get in
Yes.
anywhere. Oof.
And when the defendant arrived, did she spend time with you and John?
I talked briefly to her, and her and John were mostly talking.
You didn't see any issues?
No.
It was a normal night,
Seemed to be, yes.
as far as you could see.
Yes.
And you saw John drinking.
Yes.
Did you see the defendant drinking?
I saw her with a glass, yes.
Did you leave at the same time that John left?
No, I did not.
When you left, was John still at the establishment?
Yes.
When you left, was the defendant still with him?
Yes.
Why did you leave?
I left because I got a phone call. My son was playing hockey in the backyard, and he got hit with a stick and lost his tooth.
Oh God.
Where did you go?
I went to my son's friend's house.
You know what time it was
Oh.
when you went to see your son?
I would like to say
Right,
9:30,
oh.
between 9:30 and 10.
Bless
You didn't go
his
back to
heart.
McCarthy's that night, did you?
No, I did not.
I hope it was a baby tooth,
After
but I
you helped
guarantee
your
it
son, where did you
wasn't.
go next?
I went to
Oh, boys,
pick up
getting
my daughter and
partial.
Did you go,
at John's house.
did you go in John's house?
No, I did not.
Oh,
When you got to John's house,
God, I bet
did
that
John come
hurts.
out?
No. We went to the side door and rang the doorbell.
And then what happened?
And then my daughter came to the door.
Anything in this
Where'd you go?
area is
From there, we
excruciatingly
left
painful.
and went home.
When you went
Or
home,
your
had the weather
abdomen.
changed at all?
It was cool. It might have been flurrying at that time.
No accumulation?
No.
You got home?
Yes.
Did you do anything significant when you got home?
Put the kids to bed, my son, and no, I went to bed.
What's the next thing you remember happening?
Waking up to I missed some phone calls
What were the phone calls from?
my wife and Karen.
What did you do?
I called my wife.
After speaking to your wife, what did you do?
I got in my car and drove to John's house.
About what time was this?
After drinking,
In between maybe 5 and 6 a.m.
buddy.
What was your mood at that point?
I was panicked.
Why did you go to John's house?
Not like you get
I
punished
went
for
to get
DUI, but it just looks bad.
Did you know she was alone?
Yes.
How long did it take you to get to John's house?
I mean, I guess you could charge him
5,
if you
7 minutes.
admitted it.
When you get to John's house, what do you see?
I pull in the driveway. I see that the garage door is open. I go in through the garage door. I don't know if Kaylee was standing there. If the door, she came out the door, and I asked her, if she needed anything, she could get in my car and stay warm.
When you first saw Kaylee, what did she look like?
She looked distraught.
Did you try to help her?
Well, I think I just said everything will be okay.
Did she come with you?
Yes.
Where are you going?
To my
This
house.
is rough for this guy.
So what happens?
So we go to my house.
Slow
and,
down with your witness,
My
buddy.
daughter's up, and
Slow
the
down
two
with
girls they were hanging downstairs, just hanging out, being kids. And then
It's about to get
a
emotional.
couple hours later, maybe Paul called me and asked me to bring Kaylee home.
Did you know anything at that point?
I did, yeah.
You did or didn't?
At that point, I did when Paul had told me.
So what do you do?
Asked Madeline and Kaylee if I'd say Madeline, we come for the ride. I don't say anything to Kaylee, and
Ah,
I would get in the
God,
car
dude,
and
slow him
I
down.
start heading back to John's house.
And you didn't say anything to Kaylee?
No, I didn't. I just said everything will be all right. She had a feeling.
Why do you say that?
She didn't want to go home.
He might hold up. No,
So what happens next?
slow it down.
Um,
God, slow down, bro.
so I pull in the driveway, and I
Give
remember
him some softball questions.
Paul and Papa standing. I think they were standing at the side door, and we just.
Let's give him
embraced.
some softball questions first.
Did you stay?
No, not long. No,
Come on,
Did you go back?
I was to the house. I went back to my house.
walk him
Go back
through
to
it.
John's house?
I did the next day. Yes, I was there.
When you went back, were there people there?
Yes,
Many?
there was people
Okay.
coming and going.
There you go.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Good. Get him off the stand. If I'm a defense, I'm gonna want him.
Good morning, Mr. Cameron.
Come on.
I'm gonna want the opposite. I want him to
This is
break.
quite
I
painful
want him
for
to
you
mess
to
up his story.
Remember the events of January 28th, is it not?
Yes,
I don't want
You
his
were very
events to
close
be the
with your friend
same.
John O'Keefe, correct?
I was close with him. Yes.
And you actually met Karen Reed.
Or I
through
want to
John,
show some
correct?
sort of
Correct.
bias.
After meeting Karen,
Property
you spent
value
a
is
good amount of time with both Karen and John, correct?
Joan.
As of January 28th of 2022,
Excuse
you had
me,
known
not
Karen for
Sean.
maybe about a year or so,
Sounds correct.
and you'd see them, especially on Fridays, correct?
Correct.
That would be sort of the day that you get together with both of them often.
Yes.
And of course, your children spent a lot of time with John and Karen, right?
Correct.
You entrusted both Karen and John with your kids.
Today's the first day they've
Yes.
done this side by
Sometimes your
side.
kids would even go on vacation with Karen and John, right?
They did go to the Cape. Yes.
Sometimes you'd see Karen without John at your house or on a ball field. And your daughter in particular would sometimes spend time with just Karen without John, correct?
Correct.
Your daughter would sometimes go over to Karen's house in Mansfield when she lived there, correct?
Correct.
And obviously when your daughter would go to Karen's house in Mansfield, Karen would be the one in charge of caring for her, correct?
Correct.
And you were fine with that because you liked and you trusted Karen, right?
Correct.
And in your view, Karen
No,
was
he
very
didn't
good
want to
with
say
kids, right?
that.
Correct.
But you also had the opportunity to see Karen and John together, right?
Yes.
You saw how they interacted with each other over that year period? That
He
you knew
doesn't
Karen?
trust her
Yes.
now.
You
It's
saw how they got
definite,
along?
definite,
Yes.
obvious.
And you never observed any arguments or bickering, correct?
I mean, they argued and bickered.
You had previously testified that you wouldn't even call it arguing, you just call it banter, right?
Yes, I mean, he would. I mean, no, he would get upset or like over if she bought expensive things for the kids.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
we will get to that. That would be the one thing that John would.
In other words, they had a
complain about,
normal
Karen buying,
relationship.
Like very nice things for his niece and nephew, right?
correct.
I think most people
Or
would get
complain
upset if
Karen
somebody
was
bought
taking
something
his niece and other
expensive.
girls to get their nails done.
About
Extravagances
no
like
one.
that.
Correct.
And one specific memory you have is when Karen bought his niece a very expensive sweater, right?
Correct.
And you recall John telling you that he wished that she hadn't done that because he considered that to be spoiling the girl, correct?
Yes.
But it was very clear to you from your observations
Yeah,
that Karen
maybe
really,
so.
really liked John. I'm sorry, John really, really liked Karen, right?
Sustained.
He certainly never told you
That's
or
an
even suggested
opinion
he was thinking about
Yeah.
or planning to break up with Karen, right?
of a dead man.
Okay, so with regard to
Yeah.
that Friday night, January
All he
28th,
can
sir,
testify to is what he saw.
the plan was for you and John to go to McCarthy's to have some drinks because there was a storm coming in, correct? And because of the celebration of the girls getting into Bishop Fen.
Well, yeah, we were going out. It wasn't.
Or he can
a
testify to his
continuation of the celebration
opinion
of the girls. We were going out
as
to have a few
to,
beers as guys.
Okay.
whether
And
they
when you
loved
were leaving
each
the
other.
house, John asked you to move your car, right?
Correct.
Where was your car when John asked you to move it that night?
Actually, I backed up my car. We were leaving the driveway, and John asked me to stop so he could move his car.
I see. And he wanted you to move your car because of the storm coming in, and he wanted Karen to be able to pull her car into the garage, right?
Correct.
And that was really thoughtful of him, wasn't it?
Yes.
And
Extremely.
it showed you that he was being chivalrous toward Karen that night, right?
Yes.
He didn't want Karen to be out in the heavy snow later when she returned to his house during the expected blizzard, right?
Sustained.
You took from that there was an expectation that Karen would be coming back to his house, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
You had no inkling that day that anything was wrong between Karen and John, correct?
No.
Everything seemed fine between the two of them, right?
Yes, he did. He did mention though that night that he didn't understand why Karen had a plumber go to the house.
Because he had somebody that could have done that work instead of paying for the plumber, right?
Well, yes,
Still,
yes.
that's close.
But in any case, the plan was for Karen to meet up with the two of you, right?
Real close
Yes.
to
And she did
hearsay.
show up to McCarthy's at about 8:30 p.m. or so.
Yes, I guess that's the time.
And you saw an
I'm
affectionate.
sorry, what was the answer that you
If
said?
that was the time. I'm not sure about the timeline.
Okay, it was sometime after
Yes.
you got here, right?
Correct.
But you do remember when Karen arrived, there was an affectionate greeting between John and Karen, right?
Yes.
You saw them kiss, right?
Yes.
You saw John put his arm around Karen,
Correct.
and you saw that Karen sort of nestled into his embrace.
Correct.
And when she did that, that's when he kissed her, correct?
Yes.
And they seemed happy to see each other, did they not?
They did.
That night they were affectionate,
Jesus.
Yes.
laughing,
Yes.
happy,
Yes.
like a normal couple.
Belaboring that point.
Yes.
No arguments.
No.
You witnessed no bickering, no tension, correct?
No.
And during the month before John's passing, that January of 2022, you observed their relationship in your presence to be normal, caring, and affectionate, right?
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir.
There you go. Let him go.
You were asked a number of questions about the relationship between John and
Jesus.
Karen that night.
Redirect.
Do you know what was going on behind closed doors other than what you saw? Do
I'll allow it.
No.
you know whether or not they texted each other that
Why?
day?
Why are you allowing it?
No, that day, no.
Do you know whether or not there was any arguments that day?
I'll allow it.
Not to my, no, I don't know if they were, well, I don't know if they were arguing over the
I'm not
plumber
sure why
situation.
she's
Do you
allowing
know if
it.
there's any vulgarities that day?
No.
Do you know if there's any vulgarities that night?
I mean, we could do that every
No,
day
I
of the
don't.
year.
Do you know whether or not John was trying to end the relationship with Miss Reed?
Do you know
Oh,
that, sir?
No.
Jesus.
Next question.
Do you know if there was any jealousy?
All right, why is this being allowed?
I'll allow it.
I mean, I mean, Karen wouldn't let, I mean, they did everything together, a lot of things together. And I thought at times, yeah, you could see,
You better
know,
give the,
she
she
didn't
better
want
give the
women around
defense
John.
the
I don't know,
same
not at that.
rope, but I don't think she will.
You follow it? All right, Mr. Cameron, you're all set, sir.
That was quick.
I'll see counsel sidebar for just a minute, please.
Yep. That would be why. They're really going down a bad path. I mean, now my original inclination to think that everybody's blowing this overboard about the judge, that she was being biased, etc. That was I don't think that would have worked the way it went for that witness at the end had it been a defense witness. I wouldn't have allowed it. That's just me. It's probably why they're doing a sidebar. My guess. She's going to try to keep them to get them to roll it back in and not go down those routes. Let's see. Here we go. Oh boy, we're coming back up to the forensics guy
I'm
again.
going to recall Nick Dorino.
Why didn't they just take care of him yesterday? Could have dealt with this yesterday, dude. Jesus. I hate it when attorneys do this. They'll have a witness, they'll have them come on, they'll give partial testimony, and then they'll release them, and then they'll recall them like some point later. And it's like, why? Why don't we just go and get the testimony over with? Unless you're trying to slide it and piece it together, which I don't see it being done. I do not see that being done. Which way does this camera need to point?
So you're gonna see other than you're still doing
Or stand,
Where's
however you're
that
most
one?
comfortable today. Just do whatever you need to do, okay?
Morning, everyone.
So yesterday we talked about downloading phones and making what you call extractions.
Yes.
And from that data, you could create different types of
So
reports.
have Detective Guarino say his name again, please.
Let's everybody thank the Israeli intelligence service for this wonderful equipment that we have called Cellbrite. They're wonderful. All because of Ahmed trying to blow up somebody. We have this software that can literally read anything on your phone, including hack it. If you have the passcode turned on, where it's, I think, 10 attempts on an iPhone, and then it just kills the data. It can break that too. So you can thank Ahmed for this, unfortunately. I mean, and in its defense, it's used a lot. I mean, a lot in child pornography cases. Usually that's really where this stuff comes into play. Obviously, if you have some kind of a murder trial or whatever, or you've got different witnesses that are, or even co-defendants, you might want to be showing text messages between them, and I don't know, maybe they tried to burn the phone or whatever, and they recover the data. So it's not just from the carrier. So even if the carrier loses it, they can reconstruct it. They can basically reconstruct the whole phone from the Cellbrite.
I'm sorry.
It's
Again, for the
scary.
record, could you introduce yourself to
But
the jury and spell your last
it
name for the
helps.
record?
Yeah, good morning. My name is
helps in a
Nicholas
lot
Guarino,
of cases.
G-U-A-R-I-N-O.
Thank you.
Sir,
I think
you
it's
mentioned
also
yesterday that you
overused
downloaded
and
a
misused.
number of phones, or you were involved in the process of downloading a number of phones.
That's correct.
You explained to us that after you have the data
Warrants tend to
analyzed, you
apply
can
for
pinpoint
whatever
certain
reason.
items that you may want to put in a document.
Yeah, so the extractions
do,
into
but they
a
don't.
program of our choosing, Cellbrite is the most commonly used, and then we can take call logs or text messages, any information that the investigator is looking for.
When you downloaded Mr. O'Keefe's phone and you downloaded the defendant's phone, did you try to create, or did you create a report through Cellbrite, the software, that would show you all of Mr. O'Keefe's call logs?
Yes, I did.
And when I use the term call logs, what does that mean?
The call logs are the calls that the phone receives.
How do you create a report from Cellbrite? Can you just walk us through that process briefly?
Yep. So in the program, you can go in and select the calls from it and export it into different formats: PDF, XML, HTML, or you can create a portable case and extract them all as a portable case that we would see on my computer.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
We're about to see some evidence off the phone, finally, which they could have done yesterday.
Showing you a document of Mr. O'Keefe's call logs. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what is it?
It is the call logs. Just want to make sure it's between John O'Keefe and the defendant from, just want to see the dates, the 28th, January 20th, 2022 to January 29th, 2022.
Would this contain all the phone calls from his phone data for the calls between those two parties that night?
Yes, that's what I created.
Like, move this to exhibit, please.
Okay.
If I could, I just want to confirm it should be.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah.
Okay.
No objection.
You captured all of the phone calls between two parties on that last document. Can you also do that with chats?
Yes, that's true.
And did you do that in this case?
Yes, I did.
Did you create a document of chats between the phones of the defendant and Mr. O'Keefe for after midnight for the evening hours of January 29, 2002?
Yes, I did.
May I approach?
Yes.
You recognize that document, sir?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell us what that is?
These are the texts from the defendant to John O'Keefe. Yes.
For January 29, 2022?
Yes, that's right. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I move this as exhibit, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Did you identify or specify chat messages between John O'Keefe and a person named Jen McCabe?
Yes, I did.
Did you create a Cellbrite report?
Yes, I did.
May I approach?
Yes.
Is this it? We're going to finally get to see it. Yay. Finally. Water, you know.
It's side down? No, just the two of them? Yes, go ahead.
They're just making sure they are on the same page so they don't have objections.
Okay.
Sir, any of your document you recognize?
Yes, this is the text messages between John.
He's authenticating the document.
29th to on January 29th, 2022.
It looks just like iPhone text messages. That's what he pulls
Yes,
off.
that's right. Yes.
See, because the two played nice with each other, they
Similarly
were
to the
able to
chats,
get
did you
that
do
in
the
with
same
no objection.
With calls between Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. McCabe?
Yes, I did.
Doesn't always work that way.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Damn, dude. You're way too formal.
Showing you a document, sir. Do you recognize that
I
document?
can't believe I had this on 1.7. This is insane.
Yes, this is the call log between John O'Keefe and Jen McCabe for. I'm sure you have all the dates correct.
I almost wonder if they don't have this slowed down.
Do you have Your Honor?
Okay.
No objection, Your Honor.
26.
Did you do a file extraction and a report on all chats between the phones of John O'Keefe and the defendant for a period of time?
Yes, I did.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Can you a document? Do you recognize that document? Can you a document?
Yes, this is the text messages. Text messages between. Yes, this is the text messages. Text messages between John O'Keefe and the defendant from
It's not
January
me.
28th to
Once.
January 29th, 2022.
Do I move this into evidence?
Okay. Mr. Lessie?
No objection, Your
All
Honor.
right. Thank you.
27.
Did you have an opportunity to make a report from some of the data from the defendant's phone from January 29, 2022?
What are you referring? I did make some reports from the defendant's phone. But
What's a call log report?
again, the call log report is the calls that the party makes to another phone. So it's going to show everyone they've called or attempted to call.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you to take a look at this document. You recognize it?
Yes,
And you tell the jury what it is?
it's the call log from the defendant's phone for January 29th, 2022. It looks like everyone she called.
Your system exhibit, please. No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
28.
What we just introduced into evidence is the entire call log of calls to anybody and everybody to and from for that period of time.
Yes,
That's fair to say?
yes, that's correct.
And then can you further isolate calls between just two parties?
Yes, you can. You can search by phone number or name.
And did you do that with the defendant's records for some parties?
Yes, I did.
Did you isolate phone calls between the defendant and Ms. McCabe for the evening of January 29, 2022?
Yes, I did.
May I approach?
Yes.
Let's take a look at this document. Do you recognize it?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
It's the phone calls from the defendant and Jennifer McCabe, January 29th, 2022.
Thank you. Your Honor, move this into evidence, please. No objection, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you.
29.
Did you isolate calls between the defendant and Ms. Roberts for the night of January 29, 22?
Yes, I did.
Can I see the last exhibit, please? Thank you, sir. Can I ask you to take a look at that document? Do you recognize it?
Yes, I do.
Could you share with the jury what it is?
Yep. It's the call logs between the defendant and Kerry Roberts for January 29th, 2022.
Is that the report you created?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, move this into evidence, please. No objection, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you.
30.
Did you have an opportunity to isolate and produce a report for all chats between the defendant and Ms. Roberts for the night of January 29, 2022?
Yes, I did.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
So I'm handing you a document. You recognize that?
Yes.
And could you share with the jury what that is?
This is text messages between the defendant and Kerry Roberts on January 29th, 2022.
So move this into evidence, please. No objection, Your Honor.
Jurors, this is the way we have to put evidence in cases in Massachusetts. Okay.
31.
So do you have an opportunity to identify a text message or chat between the defendant and a person by the name of
And to go to the restroom.
Ingrid on the morning of January 29th, 2022?
Yes, I did.
May I approach?
Yes.
Be nice if this would just stay place.
This document, do you recognize it?
Yes.
Can you tell me what that is?
Yes, this is a text conversation between the defendant and looks like a group chat between Ingrid Curtis and Bill Curtis.
So did you make that report?
Yes, this is on January 29, 2022.
Thank you. And we'll get some evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
32.
If this is a good time, if the honor would permit.
Okay. Here's what we're going to do is we will take our morning recess now. We'll take 10 minutes. We'll have to see that.
Well, this is the benefit of going in late. We can fast forward. That's a long break. Huh. Wow. Substantially a long one. Okay. Damn. Guess they had to wait for somebody to get back from the bathroom. Wasn't the only one that had to go, at least. And here we go. There we go.
Thank you.
Second folder.
Yes, the raw data extraction of Gemma Cave cell phone that I created.
Thank you, sir. Your Honor, asks to mark for identification as well.
All right. Thank you.
All right, now they're gonna mark it for evidence, get it in.
So could
Maybe
you share
finally
with
we'll
us
be able to see
that
some
you
stuff.
downloaded the extraction of the phones that you identified and you made reports based on specific identified features, for example, a conversation between two people?
Yeah, so I didn't do the extraction of Jen's phone, but I made those reports with the PDFs from the data extraction.
Relative to Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant's phones, you created a document that provided us the phone calls between them on January 29th.
Yes, that's correct.
And separately, you also provided a document that included all of the chats or text messages between John O'Keefe and the defendant on January 29th, 2022.
Yes, I also included the 28th.
Thank you. And in that compilation, did you put together or do you create or review a PowerPoint of those?
Yes, I did.
And what was the point of that?
Just to show the text and calls in a chronological order, because that way you're not looking at two different documents trying to compare and contrast the calls, the text messages when each is coming in.
And did you begin that PowerPoint presentation with a call at 2:16:10 on January 28th, 2022?
Yes, that's correct.
And other additional chats or text messages earlier that morning?
Yes, there's a handful starting around 9:45 a.m.
May I
Yes.
approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Handing you a folder, sir. Can you take a look at it? Let's recognize it a minute.
Yes.
You know, the
So
biggest
this
problem
is
with being a
the bulk of
defense
this is
attorney is that
PowerPoint calls, text messages.
you
and then
don't
at the end,
have to like
there's
the
the
client.
messages.
you don't have to like the client. In fact, you can think they're a total ass. You can also think they're guiltier in hell, long as you don't suborn perjury. But your job is still to give them a defense. So just because he's friendly with her or even smiles with her, puts his arm around her, doesn't mean he likes her. I think a lot of people misread that from attorneys. And then you speak to one later and they're like, oh, I freaking hate that guy. You know, for whatever reason. Maybe a personality conflict. It may be that, you know, the guy's freaking guilty and he can't stand it, but he doesn't know that for a fact. It's an attorney's intuition, whatever, you know, and your job is then only to make sure the state does their damn job. And it's kind of like Nick Saban says, you know, do your damn job. Do your damn job. That's it. If I do mine, you do yours. We'll see who comes out in the wash. But a lot of the times, you know, there's the in-betweens between point A and B. What, you know, does the state get benefit by a court? Does the state lose benefit because of evidence that's improperly introduced or whatever? It could be anything. But as far as the attorney's relationship with their client, don't look into it.
From before 2:16 in the morning.
I introduce this as an exhibit, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor.
Right. Thank you.
For permission, I'd ask the witness to read the text messages from the morning hours, and then we'll begin the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We'll just do
Do
a
the
hard copy of
PowerPoint.
those for me.
It was provided. I'll see if you have another copy if you don't have it.
All right. I have, it's in here, the pre-morning hours, the ones that we discussed at sidebar. If you don't have them,
The defense has
They
a copy, Your
expect the
Honor.
sidebar, they discuss what they're going to actually put in.
thank you, Mr. Little.
That way they're all on one page.
Okay, thank you.
Otherwise, it could be a free fall.
May we begin, Your Honor?
for
Please.
all.
Could you first read
Yeah.
the text messages from that morning to the jury?
Yes.
I like this view on the right better
Apologize if I
because you get to see
Spell
everyone.
state things. Start time. All right. It's a little different than the
Barely.
one I had before.
You can see him.
All right, this is
Yeah,
from Karen Reed
prosecutor.
to John O'Keefe. You've really hurt me this time. This was sent at 9:49, 22 a.m. on the 28th.
From John O'Keefe to the defendant, I'm sorry, this has been an issue with me for 8 years. It physically hurts me to
Put
see
it on the
everyone else in
damn
their life do
TV
things to
so
them,
we can read
and I'm
it
forced
with
to
you,
always be the bad guy. This is sent at 10:02:56 a.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm not the same as everyone else. Most of the time I try to do what is healthy/smart for them. More importantly, I try to support you in what you need. You just lashed out at me and said terrible things. I don't know how you've gotten to this point with me when I'm just trying my hardest. You made your point and continue to beat me down. I have a lot going on too. Physically, I'm falling apart and trying to get answers and help. 10:09:49 a.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I am just your girlfriend. I am not a perfect parent. I'm trying very hard and sometimes treat them nothing like I used to. 10:46 a.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, I know. I'm sorry for lashing out. I'm just hurting and struggle daily with them. Always feel like I'm failing at this parenting thing. I wasn't built for this. 10:12 a.m. on the 28th. Defendant to John O'Keefe. Kaylee isn't perfect, but everything
Oh,
wonderful
that's
about her is
one.
because of you. 12:21:36 p.m. on the
There is
28th.
no book or map to being a parent. You make a lot of mistakes.
From John O'Keefe to the defendant, an emoji is sent at 12:21:59 on the 28th.
Nice
From
organization.
the defendant to John O'Keefe. It's
Then
true.
I
I
would
know
have
she's
had-
her mother's
I'd have
daughter,
just
but she
had
wouldn't be
a
so
bunch
bright
of
and successful if
papers.
she lived with anyone else. 12:22:51 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe. Wow, Kristen just sent 2 back-to-back messages. Do not lose your faith in the kids. 12:31:28 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe. Or in yourself. At 12:31:41 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, there's 2 emojis sent at 12:32:06 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, no, and there's 2 emojis. Life can pick you up sometimes. Please be happy with them and put away your frustrations for the rest of the day. And be so proud of yourself, JJ. And that's 12:33:35 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, that's what bothers me more than anything. Should have sent Peg's or Sarah's W-2s. We're all
Now every
guardians.
time I hear the word
1:18:21
or the
p.m.
name
on the 28th.
Keith or O'Keefe, I think of Keith from the character from
From the defendant to John O'Keefe, maybe we can call
Righteous
someone.
Gemstones.
1:21:55 p.m. on the 28th.
What a funny show.
From John O'Keefe to the defendant, like who? 1:46:42 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, what time are you coming here? 1:47:38 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, it's another emoji sent, 2:05:30 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I don't know what time, feel kind of out of it, just trying to clear my head, 2:06:07 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, he writes, okay, 2:06:25 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, text me when you guys settle in later, 2:06:44 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, sure, 2:06:58 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to, oh, it's cut off here, sir.
Yeah, but Ron,
Yes.
That must be with
sorry, help if I take it out of my mind.
I believe it, yeah, it goes to the next one, so I'll start. Yeah, sorry.
With the court's permission, we'll begin the PowerPoint.
Yes.
Check your leaders.
Okay. The phone call technologies. We'll start with the first slide. Just from the defendant to John O'Keefe. I feel pretty shitty about how this morning went down. I know you said sorry, but it really stung, especially when I've been trying pretty hard lately. I feel like a loser turning around, just coming back over after everything you said. 2:16:10 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, not sure what you want me to do. He said, I'm sorry, and I was out of line. If you prefer to stay home, I totally get it. 2:17:16 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, things in my own life have been difficult too, 2:17:33 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, I know. 2:17:40 p.m. on the 28th. At 2:17:45 p.m., the defendant calls John. The phone call is answered and they speak for 2 minutes, 22 seconds. 2:23:02 p.m., the defendant calls John. It's again answered and they speak for 1 minute, 2 seconds. At 2:24:17 p.m., the defendant calls John and the call is rejected. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, tell me if you're interested in someone else. Can't think of any other reason you've been like this. 2:25:18 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, nope. 2:25:33 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, things haven't been great between us for a while. Ever consider that? 2:26:03 p.m. on the 28th. At 2:28:40 p.m., the defendant calls John. That call is rejected.
Mr. Greeno, can you explain to us the difference between not answered and rejected?
Yes, so if the call is not answered, that means the call rang out and goes to voicemail. If the call is rejected, that is someone actively hitting the send to voicemail button to disable the call, to stop it from ringing. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, kids are here, not in the mood to talk. 2:29:03 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, so you're not into it anymore. That's fine, but I don't want to keep trying, and you keep treating me like this. 2:29:12 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm trying to hug and kiss you this morning, and you whack me in the face with a pillow. 2:29:59 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, last night you're basically like, yeah, what about when we talk about the future? So why don't you just admit you're not into so much anymore? 2:30:23 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, not how it went down, but okay. 2:30:26 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, can you please admit your head is out of the game with us? 2:30:52 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, sick of always arguing and fighting. It's been weekly for several months now. So yeah, I'm not quick to jump back into being lovey-dovey as you apparently. 2:32:28 p.m. on the 28th. At 2:32:47 p.m., the defendant calls John. That call is rejected. John O'Keefe to the defendant, OMG, stop calling. 2:32:54 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, then why would you start with me this morning? 2:32:58 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, you're setting me up to fail. 2:33:05 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, you started a number of fights from your end. 2:33:26 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant. I've explained it a few times already, not doing it again. 2:33:31 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, so you're not into this anymore. 2:33:41 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, not into fighting all the time, correct. 2:34:03 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, if you tell me you're interested in someone else, you'll never hear from me again. You can have all the space in the world. 2:34:11 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, he sends an emoji. 2:34:19 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, then stop starting with me. 2:34:20 p.m. on the 28th. 2:34:29 p.m. The defendant calls John. He rejects the call. John O'Keefe to the defendant. I'm not answering. Stop calling. 2:34:42 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, can you please answer after how you treated me earlier? 2:34:43 p.m. on the 28th. 2:34:54 p.m. The defendant calls John. That's rejected. John O'Keefe to the defendant. Kaylee is right here. 2:35:02 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, you start a rager with me out of nowhere and then tell me you're sick of fighting with me. 2:35:41 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm going to grab a drink in a bit. 2:38:14 p.m. on the 28th. 2:38:42 p.m. The defendant calls John. That call is rejected. The defendant to John O'Keefe, can you please answer? 2:38:52 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, no Karen. Not sure why you need to announce that you're going. Not sure why you need to announce that you're grabbing a drink, but have fun. 2:39:46 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, seeing if you want to meet me later. 2:40:22 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, can you please call me? 2:40:32 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, have to take him to the doctor. He has practice. 2:40:55 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, yeah, 5 minutes. 2:41:17 p.m. on the 28th. At 2:43:01 p.m., the defendant calls John. It's not answered. At 2:43:45 p.m., the defendant calls John. The call is rejected. John O'Keefe to the defendant, my father just walked in. 2:43:58 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, okay, can you please call me for 2 minutes? 2:44:14 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, not right now. 2:44:23 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm there when anyone else needs me. 2:44:26 p.m. on the 28th. At 2:45:32 p.m., the defendant calls John. The call is rejected. The defendant calls Mr. O'Keefe. Yes, John, you gave me auto grief this morning. I'd like you to call me for a minute. 2:46:16 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, I've been trying to get over the hump with is arguing, and now you tell me you're not into doing things. And you don't want to fight weekly, but fly off the handle at 8 a.m. with me, like you're setting me up to fail. 2:47:08 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm dealing with my own personal crisis over things I have zero control over. I'd like to lean on you too sometimes. Instead, I just hear everything I've done wrong. 2:48:34 p.m. on the 28th. At 2:50:56 p.m., the defendant calls John. The call is rejected. At 2:51:13 p.m., the defendant calls John. It's rejected. 2:52:37 p.m., John calls the defendant. It's not answered. And at 2:53:56, the defendant calls John. Again, not answered. The defendant, John O'Keefe, you seriously cannot pick up the phone for 2 seconds. 2:54:13 p.m. 2:58:05 p.m., the defendant calls John. It's rejected. At 2:59:13, John calls the defendant. The call is answered, and they speak for 4 minutes, 59 seconds. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, why don't you meet me at Hillside at 4:30/5, 3:08:55 p.m. John O'Keefe to the defendant sends an emoji at 3:10:08 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, or whenever you get everyone settled, 3:10:35 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, like I said, Dr. Now, and he has practice till 6. If you want to go start drinking, then go for it. 3:36:21 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, I didn't know the times of his practice. 3:36:40 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, I just want to give you space at the house without me there. So rather meet you out than meet at the house. 3:37:01 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, yeah, well now there's a 72-year-old taking up shop on my couch. 3:37:36 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, yeah, that too. 3:37:46 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, is he going to Collins? 3:38:23 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, not tonight. 3:38:32 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, so do you plan on going out tonight? 3:39:01 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, Karen, I don't know. 3:39:17 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, you're like jonesing to drink, so go. 3:39:43 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, okay, well, after how this morning went down, I don't think I need to be back over there with you. Get frustrated at how I am with the kids. Has nothing to do with drinking. 3:40 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm paranoid now that everything I do with them is problematic. So rather see you for a minute without it. Kids around. 3:40:24 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, what's your plan? At 4:47:16 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, don't have one. 4:50:09 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, so still home. 4:50:26 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, yes. 4:45 p.m. on the 28th. From From John O'Keefe to the defendant, we just got home, waiting to see what Papa decides here, or else I have to get Patrick at 6. 4:59:45 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant, John O'Keefe, okay. 5:01:55 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, so are you staying home or coming here? 5:02:23 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, waiting to see what you end up doing. I don't want to hang out at the house too much, like I said. 5:03:40 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I think it's clear me around the kids. I think it's clear me around with the kids. Around is slowly killing our relationship, and our relationship is much more important to me. 5:04:16 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, well, there's a blizzard coming, so we'll be inside all weekend. 5:04:19 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, it will be over by noon tomorrow. 5:04:44 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, don't think so. 5:05:27 p.m. on the 28th. Defendant to John O'Keefe, I don't want to keep having this constant conflict of the dynamic of the four of us. The harder I try, the more it kills our relationship as a couple. It feels like utter shit to be in that position. Rather just meet you out for drinks when you figure out what your night looks like. 5:06:45 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, well, I have no idea what's going on, so do what you want. 5:07:34 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, need to figure out what everyone here is doing. All I know now is Madeline is coming over. No clue about Patrick yet, or if Papa is planning on hanging for a few more hours. 5:09:29 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, okay, well, when you know the story, and if you want me to come up, let me know. 5:12:36 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, no, Karen, you decide what you want to do. 5:13:18 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I know your heart isn't in this anymore. I felt it for a while, and especially lately. I'm willing to try more, but not if you approaching the point of indifference. If you want me to come up and you can head out for a while, then say so when you know what your father is doing. 5:14:23 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, you come up and I head out, really? Emoji. 5:15:48. John O'Keefe to the defendant, I've told you already, I don't bounce back as quickly as you do after we have a battle. 5:16:52 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, no, head out together with an emoji. 5:17:49 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, or meet out. 5:17:54 on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, gonna send Patrick to Collins tonight. They're picking him up around 7. Mike may hang out too when he brings Matt over. So why don't you just come over? 5:19:42 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, Mike doesn't want to go out for a bit. 5:20:20 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I would like to, been a shit day from the jump. 5:20:33 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, probably 5:20:39 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, I just got sober an hour ago. 5:20:56 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'll text you, hang with Mike for a few. I don't need to butt in. Text me if/when you think you may head out. 5:25:12 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, can you send me Tim Zoll's contact info, please? 5:26:38 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, I paid the last bill. 5:27:08 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, you didn't have to do that, thanks. 5:27:43 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, are you really not going to accept my friend request? 5:32:33 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, an emoji on what FB? 5:33:01 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, yeah, we've been going out for 2 years. 5:33:20 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, I haven't gone on. You befriended me over a year ago, I believe. 5:33:48 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, Kerry texted that they're headed out in a bit. 6:05:29 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, okay. 6:14:55 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, she's going to let me know where. 6:17:51 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, so you're going to meet them. 6:18:12 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, just presenting it as an option. Wouldn't mind hanging out with them for a drink. 6:19 p.m. on the 28th. Sorry. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, is Mike over? 6:26 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, yes. 6:29:45 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, sounds your light good with getting together tonight. 6:31:32 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, was hoping after this morning you'd be interested in smoothing things over with me. 6:32:24 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, told you to come over, but you insisted on meeting me out somewhere. 6:33:44 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, Mike is a little off with me for a while now. I've said that multiple times. 6:34:34 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to Karen, the defendant, time to get over Karen. He's fine. He was fine the other night when he came by. 6:38:09 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, where are you meeting them? 6:39:28 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I don't have plans with them. She just said they're headed out in a bit and will text when they land somewhere. 6:39:52 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, if you want to go out with Mike solo, that's fine. Just let me know. 6:40:17 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, I already told you what you should do. I'm not going to keep doing this. 6:41:07 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I asked to let me know if you guys are going to head out. I haven't been out for drinks this week and had a shit week and a shit day. And I dread Kaylee or Pat is going to get chatty with me the second I walk in, and that is going to irritate you. 6:43:21 on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, Pat is leaving. Kay is with Mad Cam. 6:44:02 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, I'll text Chris then. 6:44 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, we're headed out shortly. What's your plan, Karen? 7:06:13 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, do you want me to join or no? 7:06:37 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, yes, wasn't sure if you were meeting the Currans. 7:07:04 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, they are not out drinking yet. 7:07:40 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, where are you headed? 7:09:22 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, trying to decide maybe McCarthy's. 7:14:48 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, okay then, let me know where you decide. I'm still down in Enfield. 7:21:50 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, text me when you leave. Still waiting on McKinney's. 7:22:28 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm having issues with my hot water, so had to text someone to take a look. 7:24:11 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, an emoji, you're trying to piss me off. 7:25:35 on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, hope your plumber buddy that you texted is hot. 7:26:24 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, nope, my shower only got lukewarm and now my sink won't run hot at all. The plumber I used is right down the road. 7:26:27 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I turned that temp thing in the basement all the way up. 7:26:52 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, check the hot water heater and see if it's leaking. 7:26:52 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, it's not. 7:26:59 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, don't do that. 7:27:01 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, is the pilot lit? 7:27:08 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I was trying to get my shower hot. 7:27:12 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, yes. 7:27:14 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, don't turn it up. Don't turn it all the way up. 7:27:26 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, it will burn out. 7:27:32 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I had this issue twice before and it wasn't a disaster. I just can't remember what the cause was. 7:27:41 on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, just turn it back to where it was and get over here. 7:28:08 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I don't want to come home in a blizzard and then really be up shit creek. 7:28:53 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, so you're going home tonight. 7:29:18 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, or tomorrow or whenever. I've had a chill all day since my shower. 7:29:45 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, it's going to snow all day tomorrow. No driving. 7:30:05 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, we're headed to McCarthy's. 7:41:29 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, okay, let me know if you end up leaving. 7:41:57 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, why? Now you're not coming. 7:42:27 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm waiting for the plumber. I actually think he's in the driveway. 7:42:56 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, we're taking Mike's car, so I'm relying on you for a ride home if he leaves. 7:43:10 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, he's not going home after. 7:43:27 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, 8 o'clock on a Friday, emoji. 7:43:31 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, you may have to get Michael. 7:43:46 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, you have a plumber coming over at 8. Knowing me and Papa could have handled it. Good luck. 7:44:36 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I have always told you I will not put either of you out of your way the way everyone else in your life does. I knew it wasn't working right when you were at the doctor's with Kaylee, and I knew neither of you could get here. And this guy Richie fixed it last time, wherever it was. He was supposed to be here at 5. 7:48:01 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, if it's not a quick fix, I'll tell him to forget it. 7:48:20 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, if you need a new water heater, don't let him do it. 7:55:04 p.m. on the 28th. I just want to make sure nothing is wrong / will go wrong with when I'm not home. 7:55:44 on the 28th. From the defense of John O'Keefe, he's not a scammer. Half the quick stuff he doesn't even charge me for. 7:56:06 p.m. on the 28th. From the defense of John O'Keefe, he just put the toilet seats on crooked. 7:56:28 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe, the defendant, status 8:09:02 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, still here with an emoji. 8:09:18 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, said he's got to go to HD and probably be back mañana. 8:23:56 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, so 8:24:43 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, an emoji. 8:25:02 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, just trying to figure out if I need to be here. 8:25:51 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, what does it need? 8:26:01 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I don't know. He showed me some pieces that was all rusted. An emoji. I don't understand half this stuff. 8:26:42 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant on the water heater. 8:26:59 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, yes. 8:27:08 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, tell him to leave it. I'll take care of it Sunday or Monday. 8:28:30 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, no, it's okay. I can either meet him here or just shut off the alarm. 8:28:52 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, he used to work here while I was at work. 8:29:02 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, does he realize it will be whiteout conditions tomorrow a.m.? 8:29:32 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, yeah, but he lives right down the road. 8:29:47 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, Karen, this moment is going to be intense. Can't drive. 8:30:19 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, okay, well, if he can't, he can't. 8:30:36 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, I'll do it Monday. 8:30:56 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I better not still have this problem on Monday. 8:31:22 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, you plan on being there. 8:31:43 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I too know I can take a hot shower here if I need to. 8:32:14 p.m. on the 28th. Figured you'd be, from John O'Keefe to the defendant, figured you'd be in Canton till Monday. 8:32:32 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, I'm getting off my phone. Let me know what you're doing. 8:32:54 p.m. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I think the four of us together is toxic to this relationship. Would like to limit it. 8:33:16 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, you said so yourself for probably a year now. 8:33:52 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, blizzard tomorrow. Nobody is going anywhere. 8:33:56 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, maybe I'll come back late tonight. Bad snow is in the early a.m. 8:35:14 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'll head up there in a few minutes. Let me know if you leave. 8:35:26 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, an emoji, says sure. 8:35:34 p.m. on the 28th. That was the last of them.
We're almost done, sir.
And you can feel free to stand.
Okay, thank you, Honor.
So that presentation is a compilation of text messages and phone calls between John O'Keefe and the defendant on January 28, 2022.
Yes, that was.
Aside from that compilation, are there other text messages and phone calls that you've reviewed between John O'Keefe and the defendant that evening, January 28, 2002, going into past midnight, January 29, 2022?
Yes, there's more text messages.
And those text messages and phone calls, are they a separate compilation from this?
Yes, that's correct.
At this time, I'd ask us to release Trooper Garino and we call him at a later date.
Yes, all right. There's no objection, Mr. Alessi, correct?
No objection, it's up to you.
Yes, all right. Thank you very much, Trooper. We'll see you another.
Thank you, Honor.
Is this the time for me to see counsel at sidebar? Okay. Yes.
You're going to introduce exhibits or clips 7 through 11.
Thank you.
With the court permission, could I begin with clip 7?
Yes.
When you walk out of the bar, how many drinks have you had?
I had probably about 4, and not 4 that I completed either. I didn't drink maybe more than at least 6 at the waterfall.
And who are people fine to drive?
Clip 8, please.
Is the level of intoxication pretty high here for everybody? It's happy. Yeah. It's do that last year, great. I wouldn't say I have like a warm up. Was it like a bottle tonic every 40 minutes? Okay. And so are you feeling like buzz? I'm not judging. I'm just trying to get a sense. Buzz. Yeah.
Clip 9, please.
The final count of my alcohol intakes, probably about 5 or 6 or 4. The drinks that they reported at McCarthy's, which is where I consumed most of the alcohol, was the weakest vodka tonic. It tasted just like old soda water with lime. Not that I needed it to be a martini, but it might have a splash of vodka in it. So I said, John, this drink tastes like it has no vodka in it. He said, just get a shot and mix it yourself. So each drink was being counted as a double. So I would get a vodka tonic and then I would pour a shot into it, so that counts too. Frankly, it just felt like a regular cocktail. It was just a really weak pour, so I asked for a shot. So for my taste, it just tasted like that's the normal strength of what a drink should be. So I had maybe 2 or 3 that are being counted as 4 and 6. And I don't know. I felt like I was. And then there was one drink, the last one that was given to me, which I would count as 3, but they're counting as my 6th cocktail. The guys that were with water on shots, and they gave me one that I didn't drink, but I poured in my drink. So that's now my 5th and 6th drinks with the 7th, which is the shot that all the men did, and I poured it. So that one glass that I'm holding that I go in the waterfall with has 3 drinks in it. I vodka tonic and 2 shots. And which is why John said to me, you're not leaving that drink here, like you haven't touched it and just poured a bunch of vodka, let's take it with you, which is something he always did. So then I go into waterfall, and I put that drink down and I would socialize most of the time. So that would have been like 5th, 6th, and 7th drinks. Then John orders me to drink the waterfall that I don't drink, that he takes with him. And then there was a round of shots that Chris Howard bought that I did take. So that would have been the night. But I cannot consume 9 vodka martinis or take 9 shots, depending on how you count it. And the last 2 drinks, I didn't touch.
Clip 10, please.
I mean, I'm not as clear as I would be if I hadn't been drinking. I mean, I've had drinks, so, and that led me to question, like, could I have hit him? Did I run over his foot or hit him in the knee? Did I incapacitate him? I mean, I always drive my music blasting ever since I was 16, and I know when John got out of the car to go to Fairview, I know my car was blasting because when I got in it, the next morning I looked for him, I had to immediately turn it down. And I don't know, it's stormy, I have had a few cocktails. I didn't black out, but I wasn't as lucid as I would have been if I had gone to bed at 9 and drank a tea. But yeah, so I was fuzzier than I would have been if I had no alcohol.
Clip 11, please.
How do you feel after that? I mean, I got a part of the drive and you feel how I wouldn't have gotten on the expressway. I wouldn't have gotten on the expressway at 12:15 on January 29th. I mean, it was quiet. The roads were very quiet. You can see on the videos. And I was going, you know, when I had to get drinks in the driveway, I was very extra slow. So I know my alerts aren't as sharp as they should be. But I shouldn't have been driving. But I know I was driving. I know I wasn't driving recklessly. We've got plenty of video of myself driving all over the place. I put my car in John's garage, which is incredibly narrow and had a very oversized SUV. You see, there's a video of me driving through the intersection when we leave Waterfall to go to Brian Alberts, and I was always taught by my father, even when you have a green light, you always should tap the brake and don't know who's going to run red. And I see me doing that multiple times between 12 and 1 and 5 and 6 a.m. So I know I was driving safely, not as safely or as alert as it would be if I had no alcohol. But I was not driving recklessly by any measure.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes. All right, jurors, there was some confusion with counsel regarding witnesses. So those are the witnesses for today, so we're done for today. Counsel assures me that won't happen again, but more importantly, we're on track. We're on schedule, not going for the rest of the day. Won't interfere with our schedule. It looks like it's, I tell the curtains here, but it looks like it's a beautiful day. We'll have a nice afternoon. Tomorrow we'll be going on a view. So for that, we're comfortable clothes. We'll be walking around a little bit. We'll be going bypassing. I'll have more instructions for you tomorrow morning. But please follow those instructions. Do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, read anything about this case, please disregard it and let us know. And we'll see you tomorrow morning. Remember, tomorrow's a happy day.
All rise for the court, please. Close your notebooks and follow me.
All right, Mr. Brennan, have you had an opportunity to think about whether experts should be permitted to either be present or watch the proceeding? And I also want to know, are you expecting to put on any expert testimony tomorrow?
Dr. Fowler will testify tomorrow. I think that should be considered expert testimony. He provides the procedures and protocol for the testing of blood serum.
Okay.
So I think he's technically considered an expert, although one of the briefer ones.
All right, does the defense want an expert to be able to watch that? All right, so I know we've had a lot going on this morning. Do you want to address this tomorrow? When do you want to address whether experts should be present?
I can address it tomorrow morning. I can
All
consider
right, we'll do that. And have you talked about who you all mean? Like, do you all know who you want to have exempt from the sequestration order?
We haven't got to that detail. I'm sure they have in mind who they want. I haven't got to that point yet.
All
I
right,
can have that discussion so that we can present tomorrow what my position is and address the court on the witnesses.
sure, we can do that. And then I know you said that you've got an agreement that you'll provide witnesses or a list of witnesses in advance to defense counsel, and I'm sure you'll provide witnesses in advance, Mr. Brennan. Include me on that, please. I'd just like to know who's coming up the next day because I have to prepare as well.
Happy to. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Thank you again.
Wow. Damn. I am shocked. All right, y'all. That's going to be it for today. Looks like that's it. If they, whatever reason, come back, maybe I'll, yeah, it looks like that's it. Well, that's it for today then. That's bizarre. I didn't expect it to be a half a day for them, but apparently tomorrow's going to be a pretty packed day for testimony. A lot of experts. So we'll check back in tomorrow. Wish I would. Sorry, I had to be interrupted with business, but I actually have to pay bills. So, all right. Well, thanks. Appreciate it. Doubt it's been an enjoyable experience. There hadn't been a whole lot. I haven't been able to comment on much. If you leave a comment down below, I'll respond. Maybe I can explain something better. If you want to know about the rules of evidence, I can go through those on another video. It's easier to do those off of a stream rather than trying to do it simultaneous and breaking it up. It just depends on people. So just let me know. Thanks y'all for joining with me. Like, subscribe, and we'll see y'all later. Right, bye.